Good evening. We're joining you again here on KCRG TV9 streaming platforms late this evening for a new set of storms that is developing across the area. We've got new severe thunderstorm warnings, a new severe thunderstorm watch to talk about. I'm meteorologist Corey Thompson. I'll be guiding you through it over the next little while as storms continue to develop and affect areas generally near and south of Highway 30. That does look like where most of this activity will take place, and we'll be providing you information here, at least for the time being, as that severe weather threat sticks with us. So let's get right to it, and let's take a look at what we have here across portions of the area. Pinpoint Doppler radar is starting to look pretty active. A pretty good thunderstorm cell moving into the Cedar Rapids area. We've got trailing thunderstorms back toward Poweshiek County and far southern Tama County. And that's where a severe thunderstorm warning is in effect until 12:15 this morning on early Wednesday morning. 60-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-sized hail are the threat there. In fact, 60-mile-per-hour gusts were reported, or rather, quarter-sized hail was reported in Grinnell with this storm. So it is an observed severe thunderstorm warning, and it is tracking off to the east at about 40 miles per hour. You can see some of those purple colors in the radar. That usually is indicative of where the largest hail will be. And so let's take that off to the east at 40 miles per hour. So the heaviest stuff, and we'll even take it out a little bit further past where that warning expires. Malcolm, we're getting toward the area at around 11:52. Montezuma, closer to 11:59. Brooklyn just at midnight, and toward the portion of Ladora, we're getting closer to 12:20 there. Victor, you're not included in the warning, just outside of it in portions of Iowa County, but that would be about 12:12 tonight as we get later into the night and very early Wednesday morning. Tons of lightning with these storms too. We're going to put a loop on here to load that lightning data, and it'll take a second to pop in, but you can see all those lightning strikes as storms continue to develop. Vivid displays of lightning, certainly noisy storms as they move through. So if you're joining us and you may have fallen asleep and woken up by the storms, that's the situation in terms of where those storms are starting to line up. Now, areas where there are storms but they are not currently severe, one of them is here moving into the Cedar Rapids area. Pretty heavy stuff, very heavy rain, as well as the potential for at least small hail. Right now, severe weather not there in that area, but the National Weather Service is keeping an eye on it. And the potential could be that those storms would strengthen just a bit more. Latest word from them, monitoring it. Maybe focused a little bit more on the potential for some damaging winds. That's what the National Weather Service in the Quad Cities is monitoring. The National Weather Service in Des Moines at this point has been looking more at that damaging wind threat at times, but these storms are taking place near and behind a frontal boundary. So when you're behind that front, it does reduce the threat for damaging winds sometimes, but sometimes you can get them to sneak on down, which is why we have that observation of a 60-mile-per-hour wind gust and quarter-sized hail toward the Poweshiek County area. Let's talk about a new severe thunderstorm watch as well. This has been expanded across more of the area. In fact, I want to take a look here at some information off the screen. It's a pretty small watch that was added here in eastern Iowa, because it goes until 4 o'clock. So there's two different watches here in effect. This one, that includes a lot of eastern Iowa. That goes until 4 o'clock. This one here, that includes central Iowa, and that goes until 2 o'clock. So the line is drawn there, but generally just the picture of additional storms that will be here into the night that could produce wind damage as well as some large hail. Those are the two threats there as we get later and later and as these storms continue to develop. If you're just waking up and joining us, we are keeping an eye on storms that are moving through. Let's take a look at our Cedar Rapids downtown city cam. It's been producing some very impressive displays of very bright flashes of lightning. Yeah, no mistaking it, storms moving through. You look at that flag in the lower left corner of your screen and you can see a few indications of some stronger winds. That flag is certainly blowing in the breeze. It doesn't look extreme by any means, but certainly some stronger winds and Yeah, we've seen that for some of those storms. And again, that was what was warned off to the west too. Looking for additional information from the National Weather Service. Not a ton at this point. We'll take a look at our Manic Colony city cam. This is, of course, storms that are off to the north, but it's just going to be a light show. I've had reports of that from folks in the area, and just, of course, it's that time of year where if you've got that storm energy that lingers into the night, some of those storms at night just really produce so much lightning. Beautiful from a distance, dangerous from up close. And so if you're in an area where storms are moving through, we do want you to avoid them. Stay away from windows, stay away from the outdoors until those storms pass, because, of course, lightning can be especially dangerous too, despite the other threats that we face with these storms as they move through. Storm Prediction Center recently did put out what they call what's known as a mesoscale discussion. Basically, it's just an area that they're taking a little extra care to keep an eye on. It's this area highlighted in red. Storm Prediction Center basically saying that the threat for additional storm development is there. Some could produce large hail, and that's why they end up issuing that additional watch for eastern Iowa. Yeah, it's all as conditions remain favorable into eastern Iowa for that development. Large hail and then some wind damage, perhaps if storms begin to congeal more into lines. Now, they don't rule out the possibility of an isolated tornado completely. It does look low that the chances for that are fairly slim. And so we're not really expecting that to be much of a factor as we go into the night. But of course, we're always watching, and we've got data, we've got radar data, we've got the National Weather Service on our side, helping us to keep an eye on that. Back to our traditional radar view, and we'll take a little bit of a tour here of some of those spots. This storm in the Cedar Rapids area, not severe, but certainly a strong storm. It's probably just a little bit below severe limits. Kind of keeping an eye on whether we're going to see any reports of hail within the Cedar Rapids area. But at this junction, we just haven't, and that's great. Hopefully we can keep that going and avoid any of those stronger outcomes. You can see plenty of lightning moving right through the downtown area. Haven't heard any thunder from inside the studio. Sometimes you can hear that. So far, so good here in the downtown studio here in Cedar Rapids, but that possibility will be there as well as we go through the next half an hour in the Cedar Rapids area in particular. Down the line, Walford seeing some heavier rain south of Blairstown, northern Iowa County, just west of Marengo as well. You can see that there is the indication here as we put this on a loop. We may be seeing some cooler air rushing out from the storm in this line that's kind of extending outward. Could be some stronger wind gusts that extend to that. That also could be representative of where that frontal boundary is. And so that's where the storms on the cooler side of the boundary, on the left side, they would be the ones that would still have some potential for hail. But if you're on the cool side of the boundary up here, that tornado risk is going to be zero. And the risk for damaging winds, lesser up that direction too. So not necessarily expecting that kind of outcome for those storms up here. But as we pan further down to the west, we have that severe thunderstorm warning. It goes for another 25 minutes here for portions of Poweshiek County. Jasper County, that's just outside the TV9 viewing area. Most of the storms have moved out, but it really is far eastern half of Poweshiek County. Grinnell even starting to get on the backside of this and likely seeing the rain tapering off. Yeah, pretty much moving due east. Brooklyn, you're about to get involved within the next couple of minutes. Victor, right on the border of Poweshiek and Iowa counties, you'll get involved too. It's going to take a few more minutes for you, but it will eventually get to your neighborhood and could bring those gusty winds and quarter-sized hail, which is the verified part that was in Grinnell. A storm chaser there actually was able to see some hail and also reporting torrential downpours. Plenty of moisture in the atmosphere, and so any storm tonight, whatever storm is left, will be producing those very heavy downpours. We're actually going to go ahead and switch to our velocity view, not necessarily because we're looking for areas of rotation, but we are looking for areas of strong winds. I'm going to go ahead and take off the flashing warning here so I can take that off. I'm going to go ahead and take off the warning box altogether, but just so I can click here and see that the velocity that is being picked up by the radar, now decently off the ground, but west of Brooklyn, 50 to 60 miles per hour in some of those cases. And so generally looking for those strong winds to be moving right along Highway 6. So areas around Brooklyn and Victor could be seeing some of those stronger gusts. Wouldn't be surprised if you saw some south of Interstate 82, about to cross Highway 63 south of Malcolm. So a pretty broad area where there could be some gusty winds within this storm, as well as some of those areas of hail getting involved. Let's take kind of a broader view, or a composite view here around the state. You can see showers and storms lining up along that boundary. They really filled in within the past hour where there were some gaps. Now there are not. And we're seeing some of those turn severe in southwest Iowa too. And that is where we are expecting perhaps the strongest storms to be located. The farther south you go, better access to energy. Got a couple of folks in the YouTube chat. If you want to interact with me here in the Weather Lab, that would be a good way to get in touch at this point. That's sort of what we got pulled up here, and keeping an eye on it. Some reports of pea-sized hail in Cedar Rapids, small hail in Marion as well. That tracks, that kind of goes along with what we're expecting as these storms roll through Linn County. Just not seeing the real obvious and solid development like we've seen in Poweshiek County. Those storms just do look a little bit stronger. And so that's why we've seen those outcomes involving larger hail potential off that way where the warning's in place. Still though, plenty to wake you up. And if you're just joining us now on the KCRG streaming platforms or on our YouTube channel, thanks for joining us. But it's these storms that we're monitoring, certainly giving us a wake-up call here late at night or just before morning on Wednesday. Looks like the National Weather Service put out an update, trimmed out Jasper County from that severe thunderstorm warning. Also left Tama County in, so they're calling it radar indicated at this point just because we haven't had new reports from spotters or other area members of the public, but 60 mile per hour wind, quarter-sized hail as storms progress off to the east. Still looks like they're moving about 40 miles per hour, about 35 miles per hour, so perhaps slightly slower than we were seeing before. We're going to go ahead and put a storm track, pause it here for a second, and put a storm track as these storms progress off to the east. Montezuma, you're still a few minutes away from the heaviest areas of storms, although you certainly are probably seeing lightning and some rain. Victor closer to 1208, Ledora at 1218, Marengo, of course, now we're getting to communities that are not included in this warning, but that would be closer to 1243. East Amana, the Amana colonies, about 1245 or so. Far southern fringe of Linn County, of course, you're already seeing storms, but this area of storms will be approaching by 1. And the North Liberty, Solon, Iowa City regions of Johnson County, that would be after the 1 o'clock hour that these storms would be arriving. That, of course, is assuming that these storms maintain their strength. We'll have to wait and see. Weather Radio woke me up for the thunderstorm watch. Yep, I can't blame you on that, Rachel. That was a comment in the YouTube chat. No doubt that thunderstorm watch came up at the same time that the thunderstorms were moving into the Cedar Rapids area. We've got another comment. Is it going to be just as bad tomorrow? Well, just as bad is a little bit of a tough question. In terms of how things went today, I don't think it's going to match the intensity and the extent of the storms that we saw today in eastern Iowa. Lots of reports of big, large hail, some reports of tornadoes, and some reports of potential wind damage too. National Weather Service is going to be out early tomorrow and taking a look at some of those areas and seeing when and where those storms hit and whether or not those storms produced tornadic damage or whether they produced damage that was consistent with damaging winds. You can get both in a storm that is tornado capable. Sometimes you get those stronger winds coming down along the southern flank of it as they're moving through. So at this point, that's what we saw through the course of Tuesday. In terms of what we see in the course of Wednesday, that is a great question. Let's take a look at this point, what we're taking a look at. At this point, again, not expecting it to be as bad, but it doesn't mean that we're out of the woods either. So let's go ahead. At this point, this is the severe weather outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. Now, they issue a day ahead of time severe weather outlooks twice a day, once in the early morning and once right around 12:30 during the severe weather season. Slight risk continues for the areas you see here highlighted in yellow. And so remember, yesterday, or rather Tuesday, as we're about to cross over into Wednesday here on the clock, the enhanced risk was in place over eastern Iowa. That was the Storm Prediction Center's outlook there. I think they did a real great job in terms of where that enhanced risk was laid out and in terms of where we saw those reports. And so kudos to them. But the slight risk tomorrow at this point is what we're facing. It doesn't mean that it's something to ignore, but it does mean that the chance for widespread or as intense of severe weather a little bit lower. Not zero, that's for sure. The tornado risk does look a little bit lower for Wednesday compared to the potential for today. Now, fortunately, we didn't see the perhaps maximum tornado outcome on Wednesday, which is always a good thing. Frankly, it was looking a little, a little potentially intense in parts of the area, but luckily the tornado damage for those that did experience it was relatively limited at this point, at least based on the information we have as of late Tuesday evening. So that's what we're watching right now. The Storm Prediction Center updates their outlook at about 1 o'clock in the morning for the first time on the same day. So they call that the day one outlook. And that first update of the day comes at about 1 a.m. Next one comes at 7, about 11:30, 3 p.m., and again at 7 p.m. So they do several updates each and every day, and the first one comes at 1. If that comes around while we're still here streaming, don't worry, we'll bring it to you. We'll show it to you right away and take a close look at what's going on. Here's what's going on now, though. Showers and storms. It's midnight. We are crossing into Wednesday, and you can see that activity moving right near and north of Interstate 80 here in eastern portions of the state. Severe thunderstorm warning for Poweshiek and very far southern Tama County. Tama itself, Tama, Toledo, you've maybe been seeing some rain, certainly seeing the lightning nearby, but the severe weather is staying off to your south. It's this storm that's really getting close to Iowa County at this point that has the potential to produce strong wind gusts as well as quarter-sized hail. Other heavy rain still going to be moving into the Cedar Rapids area. You can see this sort of continuing band of storms. It's moving right behind that first storm. So it's going to dump a pretty hefty amount of rainfall in a pretty short amount of time, especially across the southern half of the Cedar Rapids metro. So something to watch out for there. Iowa City, you're still about an hour away from any sort of storm activity getting involved there. So a little bit of a mixed bag as we look ahead. More storms in central Iowa are lining up right behind this. So if they stay on the similar trajectory, we could end up with a pretty heavy area of rainfall right along that path, right along where those storms are tracking. So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves through the night. These areas did not get super heavy rainfall with what we've seen so far tonight. Luckily, that is the case. And so flash flood concerns may be a bit limited. Of course, it's been pretty wet over the past couple of weeks. We've had some good rains across a good portion of eastern Iowa. Good news for the drought conditions. But that, of course, does set that stage, or at least where you might think about some of those areas of flooding. You can see a couple of flash flood warnings in southern Nebraska. There were a couple in eastern Iowa earlier, but none at this moment. Question in the chat. Did you ever chase storms to get your degree for meteorology? I did, in fact. I went to Valparaiso University in Indiana. Smaller private school, was just really kind of taken with their program, and I liked it, ended up having a great time. But one of the things that they offered there was a summer course that was called Convective Field Studies. And so you could go storm chasing, and it would basically be storm chasing around the plains or wherever storms were taking place. And it was kind of cool, but it was also a good way to learn. So you can learn a lot about severe thunderstorms from textbooks, from observing them on radar and from a distance, but you do learn a lot about the structure of storms and how they evolve and how they form and how they dissipate by being out in the field and seeing them. Now, we played it very safe when we were doing this as students, but we learned a whole heck of a lot from that. So not only was it a neat experience, an exciting experience, but it was very educational too, and really, really value that experience that I got from college. It was a really big deal. It's not a requirement for a degree in meteorology, but this is just something that was offered, and I took them up on the chance for sure. Lucas says, thanks for streaming. Lucas, happy to be here. We are keeping an eye on things in the First Alert Weather Lab. Something we're trying out new this year, just doing some additional streaming on our streaming platforms and on YouTube as well. Just want to keep folks informed. This is where people are looking for information. They're up late, they're hearing the storms move through, and even if they're not severe, you know, there's information to pass on. And as these warnings come and go, and as that severe thunderstorm watch gets issued, folks would certainly be woken up. We had that other member of the chat saying they were woken up by their weather radio as the watch was issued, and sure. And so that's why if you got woken up, we want to be here for you. That morning, off toward Poweshiek County and Tama County. This goes until 12:15 here in eastern Iowa. Again, severe thunderstorm warning. This morning, the storm itself is about to get out of Poweshiek County. So the National Weather Service covers certain areas. And so Poweshiek County is the eastern border of the area of responsibility for Des Moines. They cover basically the central portion of the state. Here in eastern Iowa, they basically cover this area. I'm going to draw it on your screen. Bear with me. It may take some time, as I may not be the most skilled artist here, but we're going to kind of shape it out here. And that's their area of responsibility here in eastern Iowa in terms of the counties we are concerned about. So that's where Des Moines is responsible for. We've also got another area of responsibility for the La Crosse National Weather Service. They cover northeast Iowa and southwest Wisconsin, and then southeast Iowa is covered by the Quad Cities National Weather Service. And so they will be handling any additional warnings for this storm as it moves farther east. Haven't heard from them. Does look like on radar that this storm perhaps has weakened a little bit, although it still has that potential for some gusty winds. But without new reports, I'm curious. Yeah, no new information from the National Weather Service on either side of the boundary there. So we'll have to wait and see. We'll learn together. Question in the chat, was Indiana weather different from Iowa? No, not that different. The biggest difference where Valparaiso is, which is south of Lake Michigan, is that we got lake effect stuff. And so we saw extra snow and extra showers sometimes just because of where the lake was. So sometimes we get really heavy snow. We got a snow day just because the lake existed. It was certainly interesting stuff. Some more comments saying thanks for streaming. Again, happy to be here to help. We are just looking to help keep you guys informed and safe as storms move through. Somebody said a lot of interference from the storms with digital TV. Yeah, digital TV signals can be affected, especially by lightning. If you're already kind of on the edge of getting that signal properly, it can be a little bit tough. National Weather Service keeping an eye on the storms moving out of Linn County. They say it's close to, but not quite to severe limits, and that's pretty consistent with what we've had in terms of reports of people chiming in on the YouTube chat. Just small hail, plenty of rain, plenty of lightning, and even some gustier winds, but just not there for a severe thunderstorm warning. But they are monitoring it, as they are any storm in their area of concern. And you can see Anamosa getting some of that heavier rain, areas between Lisbon and up along portions of Highway 1, seeing some of those heavier areas of rain as well. These are some of those areas that have seen multiple storms tonight. They had those very intense storms, a tornado reported in Johnson County earlier this evening, not Johnson, Jones County, near the Onslow area. Very picturesque tornado. Hopefully didn't do very much damage out there. But it certainly was something to check out, pictures and videos that we got sent to us. Yeah, CR Marion, folks that are tuning in from there saying that stuff is quieting down for the moment. And that does, especially on the northern half of the metro, that does look pretty consistent with what we're seeing on radar. Down south, closer to Highway 30, southwest, southeast side, probably seeing some heavier rain, maybe some small hail too. But at this stage, just not seeing additional severe weather indications. See what the National Weather Service said here. Des Moines said they were going to let the storm warning expire at 12:15, and that's because the storm had weakened a bit, because that does stay consistent with what we've been seeing on radar too. So not too shocked that we have been seeing that warning expire. Let's go ahead and put on a wider view again, see where we're at. And again, right now it is very much confined mostly to the central and southern portions of the viewing area. A couple of very small isolated storms up north, but the more widespread and more intense storms at this point in terms of heavier rain, lightning, or even small hail, yeah, they're down toward the south, central and south. And that's where that severe thunderstorm watch is in effect. And again, we've got two areas here. I'm going to pull this up in a different way. Bear with me here, folks. This will kind of delineate the two. So two different watches. Remember, the eastern portion until 4 o'clock, the western portion until 2 o'clock. Basically, for the at least next few hours as these storms continue to develop and evolve, we're going to see the potential for some hail, maybe some gusty winds as they track through. They're moving at about 30 to 40 miles per hour. And so if a storm enters your area, it'll be there pretty quickly, and then likely be there and move out pretty quickly too. But the areas in pink are included in these watches. Henry County in the south not included, although storms will be near your area perhaps later tonight. Cedar Rapids, Maquoketa, Iowa City, Washington, Oskaloosa all involved as well. Several of those communities haven't seen new storm activity yet this late evening into the overnight hours, but you very well could. Wide view from the National Weather Service. They continue to issue new warnings down in far southern Iowa. This area of storms does look fairly strong south of Des Moines. Now, the question will be, will it be moving quick enough and maintain its strength as it moves eastward to enter the southern portion of the viewing area? It's moving at about 40 miles per hour, 60 mile per hour winds and quarter-sized hail is what those warnings, those newest warnings out here in central Iowa have been issued for. So let's go ahead and let's take a wider view. I'm going to go ahead and for this portion of the storm that has been producing those warnings, let's take it out. Let's just take it out way off to the east. And we're talking very far to the east. Actually, let me go ahead and it was 40 miles per hour. So it's moving a little bit quicker than those storms off to the south. So this really doesn't get into eastern Iowa for a few more hours. We're getting closer to 2:45, 3 o'clock as this portion of the line of storms moves east. Fairfield closer to 3:45, Washington closer to 4. And so we could have more storms late into the night. Now, there are indications generally that as storms continue to develop and kind of congeal, they may lose some of their punch as we get later into the night. Obviously, we're losing some of that energy from the day too. But certainly want to keep an eye on it, and that's why those severe thunderstorm watches continue too for that potential. Rachel says, are there going to be some in-person weather spotter classes in Cedar Rapids anytime soon? Rachel, bad news. National Weather Service doing online only this year. So they're doing virtual trainings only. I don't know if that's what the reasoning behind that is, but that's the choice that they've decided to make with their spotter trainings this year. There are a number of options for that. but no in-person trainings is my understanding. And let's see if I can find more information. Quad City storm spotters. They may have actually completed all their spotter trainings online too at this point. So yeah, that's unfortunate. Hopefully they bring them back in person in the future. I know that's a useful way for people to make connections and to learn a little bit more in person. Some people are better learning in person than they are via a Zoom or something similar. But this year just wasn't in the cards for one reason or another, and that's where we stand. Still seeing some nice looking storm cells in terms of producing heavy rain, lining up near and just south of Highway 30. Again, kind of training one after another here for portions of Lynn County, Benton County, northern Iowa County as well. Those are going to stick with that area within the next hour or so before they start to move on. You can see behind them, we start to get some clearer areas south of Tama, and so those will move into those areas too. Does look like these storms, though, are just on the strong side. Not going to get severe just yet. We'll go ahead and turn the lightning on. It'll take a second to load up here the latest information. It's not losing all of its lightning as it moves east. In fact, it's staying prolific, and so that continues to move through, and we're seeing that as well. Let's actually take a look at a couple of our city cams. Cedar Rapids downtown. This is looking off to the generally south-southwest. West and southwest a little bit. Plenty of flashes of lightning in the Cedar Rapids metro. Don't be surprised if that continues for a little while. Our Mana Colony City Cam, similar stuff. Plenty of bright flashes in the otherwise quiet Amanas at this point. No rain falling in that area, but it is very, very close by, and they'll likely be seeing some not too far from now. So that is something we're watching there too. Springville City Cam. Heavier rain, winds blowing a little bit, but not looking intense, which is good news there. Plenty of flashes of lightning in the neighborhood too. So all of this fairly consistent with what we've been seeing in most areas so far. Let's go back to pinpoint Doppler radar. We will take a closer look at a portion of the storm moving into Iowa County. Again, no severe thunderstorm warning here, but in terms of some of those stronger wind gusts, the possibility is there in northern Iowa County. Now, this blue area represents wind speeds that could be near that 50 mile per hour limit. However, they are pretty high up in the atmosphere as being sampled from the radar. We're talking 5,000 to 7,000 feet up. Radar beam shoots just off the vertical, doesn't go parallel to the ground, so it actually increases in height the farther away it gets from the radar. But there could be some of those areas that produce wind gusts that could be 50 to 60 miles per hour. At least it's trying to. Now, whether or not it's able to, well, we'll have a better idea as storms move into some populated areas. Victor, of course, Marengo, and approaching the Amanas within the next 45 minutes. So something to watch out for as they continue to move east. Hail indicator over the last little while. So there have been occasional times where it looks like the storms could have been producing some hail. We saw some indication of small hail from your reports in the Cedar Rapids metro, but for the most part, it's very much on the smaller side at this point. If we go live with the current hail size, yeah, it's just not there. Not seeing a ton of indication really anywhere. Maybe some pea to marble sized hailstones within this, so that's good news there. So instead, at this point, we deal with mostly non-severe storm activity and plenty of lightning, plenty of heavy rain. But in terms of severity, it's very strong, but not producing severe weather outcomes right now, which is good news. Again, that may change later into the night as we see storms move in from central Iowa. Or new storms could develop too, and again, storms can strengthen at just about any time and produce some of those effects. Just keeping an eye on some stuff here from the National Weather Service. No particular new information at this junction, which is okay. No news is good news in a lot of these cases. And so we do like to hear that too. Does it seem like the hail has been larger this year than in previous years? That's a question in the YouTube chat. That is a good question. I don't think so per se. We have seen, especially today, some reports of some very large hail, and that's not necessarily something that you see every year. But I wouldn't say necessarily that there is a systemic or obvious difference this year so far. Of course, we'll have to just sort of play it out as we go through the rest of the season. But for now, I would say it's just kind of that. Report from the YouTube chat of tons of lightning here in Iowa City now. I believe that lightning has been in no short supply with storms tonight. So no surprise that we're seeing reports still of very intense lightning, vivid lightning displays. And of course, lightning is dangerous. Stay away from appliances that are plugged in. If you're watching us on a computer and it's not on a surge protector, you should consider getting one to help keep your product safe. And maybe consider unplugging it too at this point as storms roll through. National Weather Service in Des Moines continues, keeps updating severe thunderstorm warnings well off to our southwest, southwest of the Des Moines area too. Luckily, we are not seeing the same type of storms that they are seeing down that direction, and that's quite okay. Just looking at the radar, if you look at it with me here, you can see the reds not as widespread as they were perhaps at the start of the loop, which represents an hour ago, as they were by then. So that's good news there. And at this point, folks, really does look like we're looking at mainly small hail and heavy rain. Tons of lightning. Illinois got hit a few weeks ago and their hail was huge. That is the truth. That is a comment from the YouTube chat. Definitely saw some very large hail in Illinois earlier this season, perhaps record-setting for the state of Illinois. So that certainly was something. How much rain have we got from this morning's and yesterday's storms in the CR area so far? Let's take a look. Got a couple of different ways to do that. Let's first, well, not storm reports, but instead let's look at radar estimated precipitation. So Cedar Rapids area, depends on your part of town, but at least radar estimates of, let's say down toward the southwest side, 1 to 1.5 inches. East of Highway 13, north of Bertram, 1 to 1.5 inches. Southeast side, maybe between about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. And up toward the northeast side, you're talking about 3/4 of an inch. Now we also have pinpoint storm net on our side. First, we're going to look at data from yesterday. And so it divides the information based on 24-hour periods. So we just crossed over, as we know, between Tuesday and Wednesday. And so it's going to be a little bit tougher to get that. We're going to have to do a little math, potentially. So we'll start with yesterday. And this takes us all the way up to midnight. And so here's where we are from Pinpoint StormNet. I think it's doing something weird because we're not quite at that interface. So let's do today. Seems a little bit light on both fronts. So I think StormNet, just because we're so close to midnight, hasn't quite registered that change in dates just yet. So we'll have to wait and see. But some reports, again, based on radar data, 1/2 inch to about 1 inch or plus, with the heavier totals coming in on the southern half of the area, at least from Cedar Rapids. Rachel asks, how can lightning strike through windows? Well, it can. It's not a high chance, but of course we don't want you to end up in a bad situation on a high chance when a glass is not necessarily fully insulating. Certainly the window frame and other areas near there wouldn't be either. Yeah, just like similar, you shouldn't take a shower when there's a lot of frequent lightning around or such like that. Just, you know, ways to play it safe for sure. Not a big flash flooding risk right now, Chad says in the chat. Yeah, that does appear to be the case, although of course that can change in a hurry. And especially when you've got heavy rain in an urban area like we're seeing, especially in southern Cedar Rapids, things can change pretty quick. I can pull up some information off the air. Let's see what the airport has recorded here in Cedar Rapids. Yeah, just 6 100ths so far. So not the heaviest rain, at least at the airport just yet, but it's there. And let's do the 1-day amount. Heaviest rain so far in Iowa, Dubuque, with almost 1 1/3 inches from the storms earlier today. So they got the prize in terms of who had the heaviest rainfall. All right, friends, at this point, due to the state of the storms and the intensity that we've seen so far on radar lately, I believe I'm going to go ahead and step away from the stream for a moment. Now, the stream will continue. We're going to keep it running with a loop of different weather information to help keep you informed. But for the moment, just to spare my voice and to gather a little more information, we're going to take a little bit of a pause here. I'll be back. I'll be monitoring still here in the First Alert Weather Lab and jumping in to provide some new information as we have it. But for now, thank you for joining us. I will still be here. Not going to be gone, just going to be quiet for a little bit. So thank you. Hi there, I'm meteorologist Corey Thompson here in the First Alert Weather Lab, providing you a bit of an update on what's going on around eastern Iowa severe weather-wise. Now, there are no severe thunderstorm warnings in effect for any portion of the TV9 viewing area. The only ones in the state are down in south central Iowa. But there is the potential for some stronger storms, and we've been monitoring it, and you've been monitoring it here with us over the past, let's say, at this point, a little over an hour. Yeah, it looks like it's been a little bit over an hour that we've been streaming here. So let's take a look at pinpoint Doppler radar and what we're seeing around the state right now. Showers and storms are lined up near and south of Highway 30 generally. Some very isolated stuff north of there, but it's these areas that are right, especially near Interstate 80 now, seeing some pretty heavy rainfall near and south of there. Iowa City starting to get involved in some of this. Cedar Rapids getting out of some of the heavier activity over the last several minutes, but you can see that heavier cell popped up over Iowa City, moving over the Solon area right now. Could be producing some heavy rain, some small hail in some of those areas, so we are seeing plenty of that. Williamsburg getting involved in that too, and more off to the southwest. Now, there are some severe thunderstorm warnings here in central Iowa, 60-mile-per-hour winds as well as penny-sized hail. National Weather Service in the Des Moines office lists this warning as a tornado possible. So there's some hint of some minor rotation. At this point, I'm not seeing a ton going on there, but of course, we know these things can spin up pretty quickly. And sometimes in those lines of storms, you can get stuff that happens pretty quickly too. So that is why they have that in effect there. 60-mile-per-hour winds were reported, I believe, in Creston not that long ago. So they did have a report there. Yep, Creston, peak gust of 60 miles per hour. So these storms are moving east at about 40 miles per hour. And so where they are sort of lined up parallel, we're going to start to see some pretty heavy rainfall totals in portions of Mahaska, Iowa, Poweshiek, Johnson counties potentially. Cedar Rapids has seen some decent rainfall over the past little while. But it's these storms to the south where we have them moving at 40. And if they maintain their current strength and continue moving off to the northeast, east and just north of east, it would be affecting areas south of Interstate 80 the later we get into the morning. Now remember, please do give some wiggle room to these estimates because it's going to be dependent on the storms A, holding together, and B, maintaining their strength, and C, maintaining their speed, which can change. It can accelerate, decelerate a little bit. So that is something to keep an eye on and just keep in mind. But entering the TV9 viewing area, or at least on the edges of it, Oskaloosa 246, Ottumwa just after 3 o'clock, Fairfield closer to 3:45, Washington closer to 4 o'clock. So this is pretty consistent with where we tracked these storms just a little bit ago. Haven't seen a big change there in terms of their expected arrival. And so remember, that would sort of keep it parallel with the Highway 218 area between about 4 and 4:30 down toward Mount Pleasant too. Gusty winds would be the likely largest threat with these storms as they approach from the west, but certainly something to watch as they get a little bit closer. Otherwise, storm reports within the last 3 hours have been basically non-existent. There have been the report of quarter-sized hail in the Grinnell area. That was about 11:33. Creston, as we just mentioned, checked in with that 60-mile-per-hour wind gust about 15 minutes ago. But so far, other than that, not much to see here across most of the state, which is really, really good news. And again, something that we love to see. We don't want to see bad outcomes. And so far, for the most part with these storms, so good. But they are heavy, they are intense, producing potentially some gusty winds as well as very heavy rain. And notably, some very frequent lightning. Just turn on lightning tracker. Look at all those lightning strikes you see on your screen. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and pause this for a second and take our lightning counter and see what we've got. See in the upper left corner of your screen, this number up here, this is just within the field of view. So every lightning strike that you see on your screen, and within the last 15 minutes, there have been about 673 lightning strikes, and that number fluctuates as older strikes go away, newer strikes are detected. That's a lot of lightning. And if we pinpoint closer areas, that number will change. And so let's look at Johnson County in particular. 65, 70 lightning strikes, 73 lightning strikes within the view of the radar here within the past 15 minutes. And so, yeah, that's a lot of lightning to be going through in those parts of the world in a very short amount of time. So vivid lightning, people have been woken up. Some people on our Facebook page have been reporting constant thunder within some of these storms, and that happens when you get lightning that frequent. So certainly something that is a big feature of these storms as they move off to the east. Again, no severe thunderstorm warnings here in eastern Iowa. We do have strong storms, do have some potentially gusty winds, but most of these storms here in eastern Iowa are on the cooler side of a frontal boundary, and that is keeping them in check a little bit. Not necessarily seeing the most severe outcomes, although it doesn't mean that they're fully out of the woods either. That's why this severe thunderstorm watch, a couple of watches technically, continue overnight. Left side of your screen, Poweshiek, Mahaska, as well as Wapello County, and that goes until 2 o'clock. Everybody else east of there, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, Washington, and Maquoketa, and toward the Quad Cities, a very small severe thunderstorm watch, but that goes until 4 o'clock in the morning as the threat, it's going to hang around, at least in terms of a couple of storms turning severe and producing perhaps some gusty winds or some large hail mixed in too. No new reports from the National Weather Service, which is good. No new warnings either. We'll take another look at pinpoint Doppler radar. And again, lining up right along Interstate 80 as well as points to the south. The strongest storm south of Des Moines approaching Interstate 35 and approaching portions of the TV9 viewing area closer to 3 o'clock in the morning. So a little ways to go in terms of what we're watching and where some of those strongest storms are headed. We are, of course, still expecting a first alert day on Wednesday too. And that is in place, especially for the afternoon and evening. Storm Prediction Center just updated their severe weather outlook, pulled some of that yellow slight risk area a little farther to the west. This is in effect for Wednesday. And at this point, it does include basically all of the TV9 viewing area. The individual threats with this do include the potential for some large hail, as well as some gusty winds, and it does look like the threat for an isolated tornado is there too. I'm going to show you the severe weather outlook in terms of the individual threats. All right, latest information plugged into our computers here. Storm Prediction Center just issued this. And so notice that the colors aren't as bright. That's why we don't have that enhanced risk area in the overall outlook. And the risks are generally a little bit lower. But do note that there has been an area drawn here right along the Interstate 80 corridor, which is pretty close to where that front is set up right now. And looks like that's where the National Weather Service or the Storm Prediction Center thinks that front will be set up tomorrow too. And so that is a somewhat higher risk for a tornado or two. And if that does take place, that would be where to watch. Otherwise, we do have those chances for wind gusts as well as some large hail. Let's go back to that. Didn't mean to actually skip past it. So yeah, the large hail potential, not as robust in terms of it being as widespread, but where some of those stronger storms develop, we still could see large hail that gets up to 2 inches in diameter during the afternoon and evening on Wednesday. So that's the latest information in terms of what we can expect looking ahead, our next first alert day. And again, that's right around the corner. That is Wednesday. But then we have another one on Friday as well. Another storm system going to be moving through. It's going to be bringing with it some pretty widespread storms, but in terms of severe weather, looks like a somewhat higher risk is a possibility on Friday compared to Wednesday. Yeah, hail, wind damage, a tornado or two, all possible there too. Yep, so same information we were just talking about from the Storm Prediction Center. I was reading their actual forecast and seeing what they were thinking. Yeah, it seems pretty solid to me in terms of their thought process and why they have some of those probabilities stacked up like you're seeing them on your screen. We will be warm, we will be humid, and the atmosphere will be primed again for another round of storms as we look ahead toward Wednesday. But here's where we stand late tonight, or more accurately phrased as early Wednesday morning. Storms moving through the area, heavy rain, lightning, some small hail likely. Severe thunderstorm watch continues. Right now, no severe thunderstorm warnings here in eastern Iowa, but we're keeping a close eye on these storms that are in southern Iowa. They've had some strong gusty winds. They are lined up and kind of accelerating forward a little bit right along the Highway 34 corridor. So I think the Interstate 80 corridor, you're probably going to miss out on this batch of storms. But anywhere south of there, Oskaloosa, Sigourney, Washington, Tumwa, Fairfield, Mount Pleasant, those 6 counties and far southern portions of the viewing area, that's the spot to watch. And it does look like we will have that potential perhaps increasing later this morning. And that would be more toward the 3 or 4 o'clock hour. Justin Roberts, of course, will be with you through the morning hours to give you all the latest too. In fact, we are going to sort of trade places here very soon. He is going to take over the watch for the night. We sort of split the shift here. He comes in a little bit early. I stay a little bit late and cover here so that you guys are staying safe. So I'm just making sure he's set up for success as we get into that portion of our coverage here. Really do thank you for joining us here on streaming. We are doing more streaming more often, more places for this year. And so it's a little bit of a learning curve here for us in the Weather Lab. But I think we're getting the hang of it. Of course, Mother Nature has certainly given us the opportunity too. And we've had opportunities to join you here. Still expecting that severe thunderstorm warning down in southern Iowa that goes until 1:30 as it approaches the area near Interstate 35. Of course, this is well outside the TV9 viewing area, but we're looking ahead, just looking down the route and what to expect as it gets closer. Storms continue. Heavy rain, frequent lightning all along and south of Interstate 80. That will be something that we will have to deal with through the night. We will be monitoring it here in the First Alert Weather Lab as well. Right now, however, it does appear that we are experiencing a little bit of a break. I'm going to trade places with Justin Roberts. He's going to be here shortly. He's going to keep an eye on things as well. He will be doing work to get ready for the morning show coming up here in just a moment. But he will be providing updates as necessary. If conditions warrant, he'll be joining you again here on this streaming. We're going to leave the stream running, at least for a little while, as these storms continue. Might as well. It looks like folks are at least getting some information out of it, and we'd love to help keep you informed. So again, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate that you choose us for your confidence and your trust in terms of these severe weather situations, and we will have all the latest as it becomes conditions warrant. Stick with us.